What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan here with a brand new video. In today's video, I am going to go over some quarterbacks that you might want to take later in drafts. Now, these aren't guys that you are going to want as your quarterback one. They're not they're not guys of high expectations of these guys are going to take the quarterback position, crack the top 10, crack the top 5. No, your top 10, top 12 quarterbacks are going to be pretty standard. You're just hoping that these guys have value. So if your quarterback does get injured or your quarterback's playing amazing and so is this guy, you can use it as trade value in redraft leagues. In best ball, best case scenario, your backup beats out your starter in some of the starter's bad weeks. So let's get into it. I'm going to stay away from the top 12. And really quick, if you guys go to Fantasy Pros, I'm not sponsored. I'm not working with them, anything like that. I just like a lot of the stuff they have on their websites. It's kind of easy to look up kind of whatever you want in a way. But I use them for a lot of stuff. That and Sleeper. I think Sleeper, honestly, some of the stuff that you can look up is very nice. So I use both of them for research. And so let's go into it. So this is the best ball ADP. Redraft is a little different. I have the redraft kind of in here on the sleeper and a mock. But in best ball, the first quarterback that I want to talk to, so the guy that I'm talking about is probably like when I get back there in drafts, this is the guy that I want. The first one is Jameis Winston. Being the quarterback 21 now in best ball, and if you look on Sleeper, he's got an ADP of 113, so going almost in the 10th round. So why Jameis Winston? Jameis Winston, if you go back and we can look at his numbers here, look at Jameis Winston last year with the Saints. If you look at his numbers, his floor last year was 10 points. That's what his floor was. That's not bad for Jameis Winston. The thing that makes me just really like Jameis Winston this year, especially for how far he's falling in drafts, is this is a Saints team to where they're going to have a good defense. They're going to have a good offensive line. And it's different from not having Drew Brees. They had him for so long. It's kind of like the Steelers situation. You have a quarterback for so long, you don't know how a quarterback's going to be. And Jameis Winston looked like he was going to be a good quarterback for the Saints. Obviously, he gets hurt against the Buccaneers. But for the most part, last season, he did exactly what they needed him to do. And you look at his fantasy numbers, he's got a 10 against Carolina, which his worst game of the season, clearly. That's when Carolina was playing really good. New England, the Giants, Seattle. Notice some of the things is like his numbers aren't like nothing stands out. So why like Jameis Winston? You got to realize of who Jameis Winston was throwing to last year compared to this year. Deontay Harris, Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, even Troutman got hurt. So they have Taysom Hill at tight end this year. He's not quarterback. So it's just the Jameis Winston show. The thing about this year is you have to realize he's going to get one of the best wide receivers in the league and Michael Thomas back. Health-wise, it looks like he's going to be healthy the entire season, like projected. And it's not going, like Michael Thomas, yeah. It's saying Michael Thomas appears to be able to play the entire season. There's nothing that's going to hold him back once the season starts. You also have Jarvis Landry, who is probably one of the most consistent catching wide receivers. Like, he's going to be a guy that you throw the ball to, and he's going to try his fucking damnedest to catch that ball. And then, lastly, they go and draft and trade up twice. They basically traded up twice to draft Olave. So now you have Jameis Winston with Alvin Kamara, possibly, depending on his situation. But if not, Mark Ingram still fits that system very well. Not Kamara by any means, but fits that system. And then you get Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Olave as wide receivers for Jameis Winston, still having a very good defense. You got to remember that. And then you have Troutman, Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson. He has a lot of weapons. This team is going to be good. They've had the same offensive coordinator who's had a top 10 offense, passing offense at that, for years. The last two seasons has been different. with the Drew Brees situation. But you, like with Jameis Winston, you have to understand that he did exactly what he was supposed to do in most of these games. He did struggle, and I totally agree with that. But you have to realize his wide receivers he had last season compared to this season is by far uncomparable. Jameis Winston, as the quarterback 21, he will not finish anywhere near there if healthy. If you go by points per game, Jameis Winston is probably going to be a top 15, and I hope to crack a top 12 quarterback. That's my expectations for Jameis Winston this season, with an amazing just setup situation for him. I mean, you go back and look, like Jameis Winston has been banged up. Just last year, 2020 was a whole Drew Brees situation. But 2019, his big year with a new system, and he does the 30 for 30 and 5,000. But he's quarterback 4. He had a lot of weapons there in Tampa Bay. He had a really good coach, just didn't fit the scheme. And he's a guy that I definitely want to get on my teams. So, yeah, in best ball, he's going right now as the quarterback 21. For a guy that has upside of getting an easy 30-point game just in the air. It won't be running. It'll be in the air. Jameis Winston at quarterback 21 is great value for me for getting a quarterback 2. Remember, don't target him at all for quarterback 1. Like, if you're getting down here to the Rodgers, the Trey Lance, the Derek Carr, even Kirk Cousins, take one of those guys and then get someone like a Jameis Winston. And we'll go on to my next guy. And both these next two guys I'm talking about are right by each other, so it's easy. It's kind of easy to see and compare. So Zach Wilson and best ball is going as the quarterback 25 on underdog quarterback 23. So the reason I like Zach Wilson, and we can go and just look at some of his games from last year. And this is mostly just, I believe it's Dynasty, the mock I'm in, so I do apologize for the ADP kind of being a little different there. Zach Wilson, you look at his numbers last year, and it's not anything to get excited about. But you have to understand of what there is to be excited about this year. Is one, he gets another off season to practice with this team and kind of get used to the NFL, all that. He gets an upgrade in wide receiver. So not only does he have Elijah Moore, very young, very talented wide receiver that everyone was excited for last year, and I'm excited to see what they could do. They draft Garrett Wilson, and they get they have Corey Davis. So if you go and look at Corey Davis's numbers, last year in the Jets, played 9 games, not all that special, but he's a really good slot guy, and that's what you kind of want in Corey Davis. So he has 3 wide receivers to where those guys, you don't have to worry about one of them underperforming. In my opinion, Elijah Moore, there's a lot to like in Elijah Moore. Finishes a wide receiver 49 in only 11 games, getting banged up. But I mean, you look at his numbers here, Elijah Moore looks really good. So adding Garrett Wilson, adding a lot of weapons to that defense, which Salah's defenses have been very good. He's now starting to get those pieces in, and it allows Zach Wilson to kind of not be as panicked. What I want to say. His defense is going to be very good to where if they're in a game, Zach Wilson isn't going to need to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns just to keep that team in there. He's just going to need he's in a situation to where his offense is not more important than the defense. It's going to be that defense is going to carry that team if they win. But Zach Wilson has a lot of weapons. They get Uzama to help them in the pass game as well. They have one of the best young offensive lines. Like, their offensive line is a top 10 in my opinion. And you get a very young quarterback who is mobile. Everyone likes Trey Lance this year. Everyone likes a Justin Fields. You like those Josh Allens and Kyler Murrays and Lamar Jacksons. You like Zach Wilson then. Got to understand of what Zach Wilson walked into last year and what he's walking into this year. A lot more stability is there in the Jets. Now, granted, you look at his passing totals, and it's not good at all. 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 2,300 yards. On the run game, if you were to go and look at the average quarterback yards per attempt, Zach Wilson stands out as, I believe it is quarterback number 5 in yards per carry. I think he's 4 if you get rid of Tyrod Taylor. But still, 4 rushing touchdowns, 5 fumbles last year. sacked 44 times. This team is going to improve. Zach Wilson being drafted in best ball as the quarterback 23, in my opinion, is too far down. Zach Wilson is not a guy, yet again, that is going to... I don't have him cracking the top 12. I don't even have him cracking the top 15. But I have him with enough upside games. Like, there's a lot of these quarterbacks that are going to be a lot more consistent. But Zach Wilson, with a good opponent, with a good matchup, good game script, Zach Wilson can put up some big points this year. I wouldn't be too excited as to go get him in redrafts. Like, you need to have him. If he falls in waivers, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. Get your team first. If he's still there in waivers, which he should be in redrafts, we'll see as it gets closer to the preseason. But definitely a guy that you want to get as a quarterback too. Now, granted, if your team's set enough and you're wanting like a Matt Ryan, a Jameis Winston, a Ryan Tannehill, even a Mac Jones, with the guys with a little more safety of kind of what you're going to get out of, Zach Wilson just has a lot more upside. His ceiling is a lot higher than some of these quarterbacks down here in this list. And the last quarterback I'm going to talk about, guys, is Jared Goff. And I know that name sounds scary, and I get it, and I totally agree, but he's being drafted as the quarterback 26. There are a lot of quarterbacks ahead of him with a lot of talent, and I agree. And he is not a guy that you should have on your roster. If you're in best ball, yes, please get him. If you're doing redrafts, same thing as Zach Wilson. You're going to want to pick him up in waivers. You're kind of going to want to wait those weeks and see a good matchup. The thing that I totally like about Jared Goff this season is almost the same similar situation as Zach Wilson, or more Jameis Winston, to where Detroit is a rebuilding team. Jared Goff is not the future quarterback. He's being paid like a future quarterback, but he's not that. Jared Goff, if he was a guy that you want on your team, he would not have got traded off the Rams. But you have to look into what situation he's walking into. Jared Goff is walking into a top 10 offensive line. He's walking into now having receiver talent. The three receivers in Detroit, if you can get any three of them in best ball or redraft, I like it. And if you're liking those receivers, if you like DeAndre Swift, you should like Jared Goff. Now, all the talent around Jared Goff is getting drafted very high. The DeAndre Swift, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Williams, the TJ Hawkinson for a tight end, all of these guys are getting drafted high. They don't perform. If you have any stock in any of those players, then you want Jared Goff to perform. And you look at the beginning of the season, those 2 weeks to where they were playing from behind, Jared Goff puts up almost 30 points in a crazy, ridiculous fourth quarter that they had against San Francisco. And he has a couple games to where he gets to a high 20. It's nothing to go crazy about. You have to realize of how bad their defense was, for one, and they've upgraded there. But how bad the weapons were. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't the Amon-Ra St. Brown that we got accustomed to towards the end of the season. He wasn't a guy to where it was like, oh man, I'm drafting Amon-Ra St. Brown. No, he was undrafted. You picked him up off waivers. And now you add Jameson Williams. You add DJ Chark, who is, in my opinion, a great value to have. He's a big receiver. And I think he'll fit very well in this offense. But you have the two things. They add weapons. You saw what Jared Goff wasn't able to accomplish last season without any weapons. And when I say without weapons, yes, TJ Hawkinson was there, but you need receiver help. In order to have a very good offense, you need receiver help. But this team is going to be losing still quite a bit of games, and Jared Goff is not going to lead them into the promised land. I'm not saying that. But you have to realize if they're playing from behind, he's going to throw the ball, and he's going to throw the ball a lot. You look at some of his attempts from last year, and it is crazy. You got to realize towards the end of the season here, he was also banged up, but he has one of his best games against Arizona last year. Decent enough defense. So Jared Goff going as, like I said, in best ball as quarterback 26 is definitely a guy that you want to roster. He's not going to win you any leagues, but if you do end up getting him in a redraft, if you're confident enough in him, if you have somebody like a Matt Stafford, somebody like a Russell Wilson, somebody like a Derek Carr, to where that's your quarterback one, you should definitely try to get someone down here. That means the rest of your team should be drafted very well, and you have room to have that bench be guys that are just going to fill in that roster. So for whatever reason, Matt Stafford, your Derek Carr, even your Trey Lance, if something happens with Garoppolo coming back and Trey Lance is going to be the starter, I'm just saying the what if. But Jared Goff is definitely somebody that you should consider, depending on the matchup, of getting some stock in him in redraft. Best ball, he's definitely a guy that you can roster in the back of the draft so that you can have a very good roster with running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. So if you guys liked any of the players that I talked about today, please leave a comment and we can discuss of the pros and cons, why you might like them as well, or if you don't like who I talked about, that's fine as well, and maybe we can have another discussion there, and then maybe see who I'm missing down here in this list. Basically, any quarterbacks past the top 15 I would consider to talk about. So if you guys want to do any of that, please leave a comment. The link for my Discord will be in the description down below, trying to grow that as well. So if you guys are interested, please click that, and I will see you in the next video.